what's going on? It's the Petrol List.
Hey, what's going on? It's your boy Dalton from the Petrol List, and let's talk. 2023 was a rough year for almost all car enthusiasts except for Red Bull racing enthusiasts. That was a really good year for them. But I'm talking about, like, in general. I'm talking about sports cars, car rules. Formula One got a little bit boring because of the Red Bull dominance, and that even showed in some of the ratings and some of the projections and stuff. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about some of the major stuff that went on. Let's go ahead and get started. So we already know who won the 2023 Formula One championship. There are some changes that are going to be happening in 2024 that hopefully makes the racing a little bit more interesting. I think that, Formula One as a business, they understand that, if the ratings are dropping off, they got to do some stuff to spice it up, to make sure that the races are competitive, to make sure that the cars are compelling to watch and to listen to and all that. And one interesting thing that they're doing is they're getting rid of the MGUH, which is the motor generator unit for heat. And somehow, through some magic process, the MGUH converts heat into electricity that is stored in a battery, and that helps the car go faster, right? One of the downsides of the MGUH was that it kind of acted like a muffler. Now, that doesn't sound very, significant, but, it's quieter cars. And people actually, complained about that. Fans complained about it. I mean, you go from screaming V10s and V8s and V12s to a muffled 1.6 liter V6. And even though the cars were, nearly as fast, they weren't nearly as interesting. So in a move to kind of up the entertainment value, Formula One is actually getting rid of this component, and it actually reduces costs for the Formula One team. So it's kind of an up, and that is, to me, that's progress, because progress means replacing something old with something new and better, and sometimes it's replacing it with nothing at all. So progress is always moving forward. It's always enhancing things, and I think them getting rid of the MGUH is progress. The MGUK, which is the motor generator unit, and I believe the last word is kinetic, that is going to stay. That's just, simply put, an electric motor that is directly connected to the wheels that gets fed from the battery that's in the car. The F1 teams also are not going to be allowed to work on their 2026 cars until January of 2025. What does that do? It makes sure that instead of teams calling it in and just assuming that the 2024 season and 2025 seasons are just both going to be trash, and working towards dominance in 2026, that literally gives them nothing to do but improve their 2024 and 2025 cars, because again, Formula One knows that they had a windfall of new fans, and those fans are already dropping off because they already know how the season is going to end. So Formula One is doing everything they can to make the racing interesting again. The W15 is doing well in the wind tunnel. Both James Allison, I want to say the chief engineer, I don't know exactly the name, but the chief engineer is saying that, it wasn't just the side pods. The gearbox, for some reason or another, didn't fit behind the backs of Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, and it was draggy and all that kind of stuff. Things are looking good. They changed out a lot of other components in the car. It's basically a brand new car. Ferrari is going to be a new car. The new adjustments that Mercedes is making with their car, allow their client teams to make upgrades as well. So both McLaren, Aston Martin, and even Williams stand to do a little bit better. Red Bull they're being looked into for their partnership with AlphaTauri, to make sure that they're not harvesting, I guess, more insider data. Speaking of insider data, the Toto Wolff thing and Susie Wolff thing is going on. We'll see how that ends. I try not to talk too much about those things until it's all finalized, because a lot of times these kinds of investigations either turn into big giant nothing burgers, or I don't know, they just kind of go away, and I'll report on it, if something happens. I'm not really sure it would. Now, the way they started off the investigation without, true evidence, that is making Formula One take a look at their relationship with the FIA. But it's complicated. The FIA, they are the governing body, but they do a lot. They supply the stewards, the regulations, the tech, the safety inspections. There's a lot that Formula One as a business would have to take on in order to completely take away the FIA's job. Now, the other thing about the FIA, although in many ways they are corrupt, in many ways they are questionable, when it comes to driver safety, in most cases they are unbiased. The reason I say most cases, the floor planks thing, I still think that was cheesy. I use the seatbelt analogy. I know that in one of the comments somebody said that analogy was broken. I asked them why it was broken. They still haven't given me a response. But you don't check everyone in the car for their seatbelts after you get to the destination. So anyway, we already covered that. But they supply a lot of stuff. And one key thing, one win that I would have to say that the FIA created for F1 is introduction of the Halo. I think that thing has already saved 3 lives. Or at least, egregious injury. So the FIA, as much as I do bitch and moan about them, they do serve their purpose. I don't have a better solution. I'm not sure if Formula One has a better solution. So I guess they are just going to have to figure it out. So 2024 actually might be a better season. There is a quote from Christian Horner, and you gotta pardon me. I actually have to look at my phone for this because I took a screenshot. So Christian Horner, in an interview, see, I got the little petrol list here. He said, "This season," referring to 2023, "I doubt it will be repeated in my lifetime. With such strong opposition as well as such strong teams and stable regulations, I'm sure next year is going to be a lot closer, a lot tighter, and a different kind of challenge. Mercedes are a great team. They have had a really dominant period. They are obviously having a tougher time at the moment, but I'm sure they will be coming back fully motivated next year. We have no doubt about that. I'm sure the rivalry will continue," and I messed up the screenshot, so I can't finish the quote, but you get the sense of what's going on, and it makes sense. Mercedes isn't going to just stand back and let the car, suck, basically, for 3 years in a row, and they finally got rid of the side pod issue. Now, I know that the side pod issue isn't the only issue with the car, but that the side pod is symbolic of the fact that they are really, really starting anew in 2024. That is about as much Formula One news as I can squeeze out of the headlines. There's a lot out there, but like I said, I would rather talk about the substantial stuff. So when I mentioned 2024, I didn't just mean, Formula One. Oh, that's going to be a change as well. So during the off season, there's just not enough Formula One news to only talk about Formula One. So on Mondays, I'm going to have to talk about Formula One and other stuff. So here we go with some other stuff. Electric vehicles. I've said over and over again on the channel, I don't hate them. I just have my own preferences and yada yada. There comes a time when one has to, kind of state the obvious. And if something is problematic, one has to actually, maybe talk about it head on. And there are a lot of problems with electric vehicles. And me personally, I don't know how much longer the EV push is going to go for, because there's a lot of things that are, coming to light that people are starting to pay more attention to that are negative about them. I'm going to use the Ford F-150 Lightning as an example. So just weight alone. The base model lightest ICE F-150 is 4,271 pounds, 75 pounds. 4,275. The base model lightest Lightning, if you can call any of them light at all, is 6,015 pounds. Now that is a 1,740 pound difference. To put that in perspective, an NA Miata, first gen Miata with the little cutesy pop-up headlights, that car weighed in at 2,160 pounds. So just by buying the electric version of the F-150, you are almost strapping a Miata to the undercarriage. Now, it's not just heavy, and so your consumables like brakes and tires are going to wear out more, but it's also a collision hazard. The heavier a car, the higher the impact. It's physics and inertia and all that kind of stuff. And if you have a small percentage of the car population outweighing a whole bunch of the other cars on average, when those electric cars crash into the lighter cars, it's going to cause a lot more damage than two lighter weight cars crashing into each other. That's bad. Okay, so they weigh more. Their fires burn hotter. So electric vehicle fires can get up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. As comparison, a ICE fire typically only gets up to 1,500 degrees. That is 3,500 degrees hotter. And we know how parking garages and buildings and apartment buildings and office buildings, we know how they react to more heat. They collapse. That's not a good thing. I don't have to do any more explanation on that. Water. They burn hotter. So how much water does it take? So your average ICE fire takes somewhere between 500 and 2,000 gallons of water to put out. Electric vehicle takes, on average, 20,000. As a matter of fact, there was an electric vehicle fire on Christmas, I want to say in Alabama. It took 36,000 gallons of water to put out one Tesla fire. That's a lot. And, oh, by the way, all that water is now toxic. And it's not like it's a controlled drain, so it just kind of drains into the topsoil. And apparently the fumes and gases from electric vehicle fires, you can inhale them, and it's acid in your lungs. That doesn't sound very green to me. Oh, and to top it off, they can reignite hours or even days later. So you're just putting everyone and everything around that electric car at risk. And it's not just the cars, it's the electric bicycles and all that kind of stuff spontaneously combusting. I'm not fear-mongering. I'm just calling out the fact that there are problems that we should probably look into. What about the supply chain? Well, we already know that cobalt is the new blood diamond. And as much as electric vehicle manufacturers want to get rid of cobalt, guess what cobalt does? It stabilizes and reduces heat and increases range. Those are two of the biggest problems that EVs have, like right now, with the cobalt. So imagine if car manufacturers moved away from it. And cobalt mines are basically, child labor mines. Now, I might be oversimplifying, but I don't really have time to get into all the details. You can look up the details yourself. I mean, all you have to do is look up Cobalt Mine, Congo. It'll show you everything you need. So I'm not making it up. I'm not putting a whole bunch of detail into this particular video because a lot of other people do it for me, for you as well. So what's all this mean? So according to Forbes, Ford has cut F-150 Lightning production by 50%, and they have also postponed $12 billion in EV investments. Tesla slashed prices of its new and low mileage inventory by up to $6,300 US. And it's not just the propulsion system, it is also, how we drive. 2.03 million vehicles of Tesla were recalled due to the auto steer feature, and according to the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, I think I got that right. Here's a quote from them. In certain circumstances, when auto steer is engaged, the prominence and scope of the features controls may not be sufficient to prevent driver misuse. So to me, it sounds like the auto steer, I guess they're calling it auto steer. I guess maybe they used to call it autopilot. Anyway, it's just enough to get people in trouble. It's enough to lull you to sleep, but it's not enough to take care of you once you are catching some Z's. That's pretty dangerous. That is like a trust fall, and the people say, we gotcha, and then they all get distracted right as you're falling backwards. That's not good. Okay, battery replacement costs. I want to say this is a couple of weeks ago. A guy in Canada driving his Hyundai Iconic 5, $60,000 to replace the battery. I'm not sure how much those cars cost. I can't imagine it's that much more than $60,000, but $60,000 to replace a battery. I can't think of an engine that would cost $65,000 to replace, except for something on a rare supercar or something like that, like a Lamborghini or some high-end Porsche or something. But for just a regular commuter car, I can't think of a single repair that would be $60,000 for a commodity car. Speaking of Hyundai, it's not all bad news for Hyundai. I still think that the Envision 74 is dope AF. Dope. When you say that word too many times, it doesn't really make sense anymore. Anyway, I think it's cool. It reminds me of the DeLorean and Back to the Future. But guess what? It's not even based on a DeLorean. In the comments and following up those comments with my own research, it's based off of Hyundai's 1974 Pony. It looks more like a DeLorean than the DeLorean, and that's because it was the OG. Okay, so let's talk quickly about the hybrid fuel cell. So I made a quick little video just kind of showing what I was seeing in the back of the car, and I'm going to play that now. Now, there is one thing that does bug me, and that is this rear diffuser. And a traditional race car style rear diffuser, you would see that these kind of like blocked areas would be further inset, meaning that there's more allowance for the control and travel of airflow. And that leads me to believe that there's probably some machinery, maybe some fuel cell storage, some battery storage, and it does kind of make it look a little bit bulky, a little bit weighed down. But if you've ever seen a diagram of a fuel cell vehicle, and maybe I'll put one on the screen, you'll know that there is a lot going on. It's like a full-on factory inside of the car. Now there's one key indicator that I wanted to point out as we get another close-up of this car, and that is behind these louvres here. You can just see the tank. There's going to be a better shot coming up here right there. Okay, so you can see the tanks, and they're taking up a lot of space. In a traditional hatchback, this is where you could put your groceries or your golf clubs or your tires for track day. You can't do any of that, and it looks honestly quite precarious, a little bit on the dangerous side. So like I said, it's not a practical car. They had to up the horsepower to make it a supercar. They had to make it a supercar to make it exclusive, and they had to make it exclusive so that the inconvenience of this car would not make it out to the everyday consumer. Again, I would still buy one, but only as like my 10th car, and only if I were independently wealthy. And so that is one of the big problems with hydrogen fuel cell technology. It's a big reason why we need synthetic fuels in the mix if we're really going to try to do this net zero thing, which I don't really think can be done. But if we're going to take any environmentalism seriously, then we have to allow for all sorts of research and development. And we need to, move away from things that are going to ultimately be too impractical for mass adoption. Gorgeous car. Gorgeous car. I would still have one. But yeah, like I was saying, it's not practical. They do need an ICE version of it because that car is so freaking hot. People would definitely buy it if it had a twin turbo V6 or something. But as it stands, I mean, the DeLorean from Back to the Future ran off of like garbage and a flux capacitor. So for some reason, a fuel cell kind of fits the motif. Like this car from the future that's got a mess of components in the back. That's enough to be interesting, but it's not something that you want to buy and actually expect to drive every day. There's good news. There are different manufacturers that have different views on cars of the future. Toyota, they released their IMV0 concept, and that is going to be a $13,000 truck. How is that possible? I don't know. Roll-up windows, hard plastics, no infotainment. But one of the big things that people are saying is it gets shipped with just a flatbed, which is fine. Get one of those things, go to Home Depot, get some plywood, build what you need. And I think Toyota's even, hooking people up with, small businesses who can help outfit the cars. I think that is just cool. Buy what you need. Encourage people to fix it up themselves, make relationships with their, local fabricators and get stuff done. Like, decentralize it. And also stop giving consumers stuff they don't need and charging them more, which has been a huge problem in the automotive industry of late, with dealers marking stuff up. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, as long as we keep having, companies and people and individuals and whatnot that have decided that they want to make sense out of this crazy world and people's crazy decisions and stand firm, then there's always going to be hope. So there you have it. We go through ebbs and flows, and I think we're going to be just fine. Happy 2024. I'm out.